Coming up on Fernand's live show Extra.
One of the toughest jobs of my life, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. We had to bring in a stunt coordinator who had, specific winches to fly her safely. By the third iteration of it, I saw it and I was like, oh, this is what it should have been at the beginning. It was like...
Hello, party people. Welcome to Fernand's live show Extra. This is a sidecar to the big show that is Fernand's live show, featuring extended interviews with key people in the industry that make the show happen. Joining me today, we have a creative genius of sorts, being the Supervising Art Director for the American Song Contest. It's John Zuiker, and he, with 3 creative houses, looked after not 1, not 2, but 56 performances. No easy feat, but with a wealth of experience from massive productions like the Oscars and America's Got Talent, he's certainly got the know-how. Listen on to hear some incredible insight, including Alexa's high-flying winning performance, emphasis on high flying, and what it takes to produce 56 individual performances. Whew. So, for your listening pleasure, here's my extended American Song Contest chat with Supervising Art Director John Zuiker.
You're listening to Fernand's live show Extra, going behind the scenes of live TV.
All right, so John, it's a few days after the American Song Contest. Bit of a sweat relief. Tell me, how has it all been for you?
It's been amazing. It was one of the toughest jobs of my life, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was really fun and rewarding, and just getting to work with all of the talented people that I was able to work with was fantastic.
Awesome. And I guess straight from the top of it, as you mentioned how hard it was, you had 56 entries to deal with. How did you even come to comprehend the amount of work you had to do? And how did it all begin for you? How did you get involved in the song contest?
Well, I got involved through the production designer of the main set, Julio Humede. I had worked with him before on some projects for MTV and for Apple, and he called and he said, hey, we're working on this American Song Contest, and would you be interested in doing the performances, because he wasn't really able to take on that aspect of the show. And I said yes. I had a little bit of history of knowing what Eurovision was. I sort of discovered Eurovision the year of Conchita Wurst.
Did you?
When he was performing, that made kind of a lot of news, and so I was like, oh, what is this? Eurovision. And it sounded like a super exciting project. So so I came on board. I started in November. I started the week before Thanksgiving, and so it's been about a 6-month process for us. So
Awesome. All right. So 56 entries. Talk me through the sort of process of working with other creatives, and if you did work with other creatives, the concept of coming together through to making it and getting on stage. How did it all come together?
Sure. Yeah. So there were three teams of creative producers on the show that the 56 artists were sort of divvied up into. So we had Corey Fitzgerald and Nolan Padilla were working as a team. They're with a company called Silent House that does a lot of musicians and tours. And Corey and I had actually worked together previously on Kendrick Lamar's tour. And then there was Jerry Slaughter and Paul Morante, who have a company called The House of Sam, and they, in addition to work with Christina Aguilera a lot and some others, but they also work on The Voice, and the American Song Contest was being co-produced by the Swedish team, Christer and Anders and Ola, and then a lot of the folks from The Voice, Audrey Morrissey and Amanda Zucker, And then, so they knew House of Sam, so they brought House of Sam. And then the final team was Sagiv Karpel and Tyrell Washington. And Sagiv and I had actually worked together on America's Got Talent. But he also is a creative director on shows like American Idol and Legendary. So, you know, everyone on the show like has the chops, which was exciting to get to work with, you know, two teams that I had worked with before and one team that was new to me. And House of Sam was new to me. So essentially what happened was, you know, they all were assigned artists, and we just started having meetings as songs were coming in and getting locked, and you know, they would present creative ideas to us, and then we would just kind of go. And that was one of the challenges with this show, is just the logistics of it all, because it's 56 performance looks that you have to do. And you know, luckily, because everything kind of came in waves, we didn't just get slammed with 56 at the same time. So it was
I can imagine it must have been crazy. Like, we got 6 months to go, 56 countries to do. Like, whoa, slow down.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, you touched on the difficulties being in logistics. Tell me a little bit about that. Was it just a case of staging things together? Was it just planting ideas? Was it actually building it, props and that? What were the difficulties?
Yeah, all sorts of things. So in the initial design phase, you know, the logistics of keeping everybody straight and kind of, you know, trying to remember who's who and where they're from. And, you know, so my team and I had a Google Doc spreadsheet that, you know, we listed all the 50 states, and we had all the artists and all the songs, and kind of, you know, we had all the steps of like, okay, we have, you know, did we get a creative? Okay, we got a creative from them. Like, have we done sketch? Have we, you know, started drafting? Have we budgeted? You know, we had little check marks for everything. Just kind of keeping all of that organized was a bit of a logistical. And then as we got closer to the season and, you know, production decided, okay, who's going to be in what episode, then it was going back and looking at all of the creatives, because we were designing everything in a vacuum a little bit. We were just sort of, you know, we'd get a song, we would design a look to it, and it was like, hey, this is great. And then it was about going through, once they had sort of assigned episodes, and looking at the episodes and saying, oh, you know, are there, you know, 2 songs where we want, a similar look, and okay, how do we adjust? And, you know, and then the creative teams kind of have to, you know, everybody's working together, but they're all focused on their own artists. So then I have to kind of be that bridge and go to one creative team and say, well, you know, they've sort of pitched, you know, this creative team has pitched a look for someone that, you know, is very similar to the look that you've pitched for them, and it looks like they're in the same episode. There were certain things like, you know, we had Alexa, you know, had sort of a fall off her staircase at the end, and then in Broderick Jones, that dancer had a fall, and, you know, and so that was something where they were never in the same episode, but like, had they come up in the same episode, that would have been flagged of, you know, well, you have two sort of similar things that happened at the end. And but yeah, so that was you know, that the logistics of that. And then the builds and everything. What was really wonderful about where we were filming, so we were filming at Universal Studios on the soundstage where they filmed The Voice, and because we were being produced by, you know, a segment of the producing team was from The Voice, they were able to use a lot of their labor and their infrastructure that they have set up for The Voice. And so our whole construction team was the same folks that do The Voice, and they're used to building, you know, 10 or 11 sets a week with just getting drawings that week and just, you know, just banging sets out. And so I had no, you know, worries about their ability to design or to build sets that had been designed a bit in advance. But, you know, it's still a lot to sort of manage, because we were always building about a week ahead. So as we were rehearsing week 1, we're building week 2, but then we have to start ordering materials for week 3. So I constantly had 3 weeks of, performances in motion. So it was a lot, but thankfully, I had a wonderful team working with me, and no one does anything like this by themselves. Thankfully,
I can imagine, the show probably wouldn't even get done at this point, but if it was down to one,
yeah.
I can imagine. So it's good to see there's lots of collaborative energy between you and your team. Tell me about your team. How many people make it, and what's the sort of roles between sort of each person?
Yeah, so my team was, for the most part, it was about 4 people. It was myself. I had an assistant art director who helped with drawings and doing band plots, which are, sort of the drawings that tell the crews, here's where this set piece sits and this is where this musician is and all of that stuff. And then we had an art department coordinator, and she was really responsible for, coordinating a lot of things. She handled a lot of budgets, getting things ordered. She would help source materials and help source things. And then we had a production assistant that was, that was part of our department as well, to help do runs and things like that. That was just the core art department. And then, besides we had a construction department that was multiple people. We had a paint department. We had a props department. So, there was a lot of, all in all, I would say with all of the construction and painters and props, that's probably a good 30 people or so that were working on that. And then obviously we have the grips, who are the crew that move everything on and off stage, and they'll build the decks that the construction crew then puts the sets on and things like that. Now during showtime, the grip number would increase quite a bit for the live show, but probably another 30 or 30 people on the grip department.
All right. And speaking of the grip department and, doing live shows and the live show, I should say, was there any one of the specific acts that were a bit more complex and needed a bit more time or needed a bit more stage hands? What was the most sort of complex or most interesting one out of the ones that you worked with?
Oh gosh. Yeah, there were a couple of ones that were complex, especially as we got closer to the final show. Alexa had 2 flying moments, which was a little bit more complicated. So we had to bring in a stunt coordinator who had specific winches to fly her safely, and that was definitely difficult. We also were able to accomplish some quite large sets, which was nice. The Alan Stone set was sort of deceivingly large. It was this sort of massive, they called it the barge. It was this massive platform that came out in 8 pieces, and Sweet Taboo had the house that was quite complicated. We had one of my favorite looks of this season was Andrew Shepard, who was in episode 5. We had a whole palette thing that was a bunch of there was a lot of bodies moving stuff, but we had about 5 minutes between acts to take everything off and put everything on, and so that was another thing that came up in the design process, was we couldn't build something that couldn't come on and off in 5 minutes. We did a few pre-tape performances, but usually, those were because the dancers wouldn't have enough time to change in between. Plus, we were doing the set change. Plus, the show was trying to run at a speed where there could be a few less commercials and that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't think anything that we did, none of the things that we pre-taped couldn't have been done live. It was all about just how the order of the episodes stacked up, that it just helped us to do that. And that's a fairly common thing on these shows. We try to do it as rarely as possible, but sometimes for the betterment of the show and the artist's performance, we do that. And it's taped in front of the same audience that is there. It's taped earlier, right before the show starts, essentially. So it's not, it's not like it was taped weeks ago. So.
Awesome, nice. And one really cool thing I noticed is that for a certain entry that got through from the qualifiers to semis right through to the finals, there's a nice bit of development between each of them. So when it came to developing these ideas, was it like, okay, this is the second time we're going to do this performance? Were you forced to think of new ideas? Did you have something in the bag that you were like, okay, we've got time, let's do this? Or how did it all come together?
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, we had always been working under the assumption that as the looks progressed, there would be some sort of elevation or plussing up, and because we were starting with 56 acts, we never really had those discussions on the first go round. But as people, as we knew who was moving forward, we started to have those discussions of, how do we add to this? There were certain acts, like Alexa, the team that did the creative for that was House of Sam, and they had actually thought a little bit when they started about, if she goes through, we want to have this sort of, from Alice to the Red Queen kind of storyline. So their thought was, we're going to start out with all of them in white, and then, we'll slowly add some red, and then she becomes the Red Queen, and, and then there were certain other, acts like Chloe, who the set was so dynamic and offered such a great background that we didn't really want to change too much of it. And so just changing the content a little bit and growing that was enough. We didn't feel the need to add more set to it or anything like that. And what was really interesting too, because of the range of artists that we were working with, some of them had, management that was involved. And so their teams were also very aware and cognizant of what was going on. They're a little smarter. They've done this before, and so, sometimes the management would kind of say, hey, we really want to showcase this and this and this. How can we do that? And a lot of times the artists had ideas. Tanel was a perfect example. She really wanted to bring in more of her culture and more of her heritage. And, so as she made it through, she actually reached out to a group of Polynesian dancers that she knew, and she knew, some fire dancers, and we were able to get one of them. And, so that was kind of really nice. She really, took ownership of her performance. And all of the artists did, but, some of them were a little more vocal, I guess, about what they wanted. Yeah.
Cool stuff. Good to see that it's some collaborative energy, not just, of course, with the background ideas, but also with the acts themselves and how it all came together. And speaking of collaborative energy, how was it like working with, say, the director? So you had Robin and you had Ivan. Was it a case of, how did it all come together in terms of actually perfecting that idea and translating it to what you would see on screen? Was there some links there?
Yeah, Robin and Ivan were involved in all of the meetings, all of the creative meetings with us, and they would oftentimes give us some, ideas or say, I have an idea for this shot that I want to take, and so we would work together with them. Our lighting designer Noah Mitz, obviously worked very strongly with them. And what was really wonderful on this show, which was unique to shows that I've worked on in America, but is something that Eurovision uses, is that this show utilized a program called Live Edit, which is, you obviously know what it is.
That's great.
But it's a computerized switching program, so it switches the cameras from, when they call camera 2, camera 3, camera 4, and so yeah, I had never worked with Live Edit, and Robin obviously had, Ivan had not, so that was a really, I think, an interesting experiment for us to really dig into that, and I really liked it. I think the Swedish producers on the show were really in the early days, they were like, this is the secret sauce, like this is what makes Eurovision so excellent, and we were like, oh, like somebody can push a button, but then it was like, you see the Live Edit, you see what kind of shots you can get with the Live Edit, and you always see it's like you always see the pyro, and you always see this shot, and it was really wonderful. Actually, it was fun to get to see that. But because of that, yeah, Robin and Ivan were very involved. We did a whole, so I do all of my drawing in a program called Vectorworks, which is a 3D CAD program. But it's not super intuitive for people that don't know it to use. So we had an illustrator sort of translate all of my drawings into SketchUp, which is a much more user-friendly program. And so Robin and Ivan could kind of zoom around the set and see, okay, here's what the physical scenery is going to look like. Now, we weren't able to put dancers and stuff like that in there, but that really helped. So it was, we were constantly in communication, which was wonderful.
Awesome. All right. So, of all 56, or the ones that you worked with, I'm pretty sure I had a few that were like, okay, this is now my sort of creative baby. I've got a bit more of an attachment to it. Did you have any favorites? Any personal ones that you had a bit more of an attachment to?
Well, Andrew Shepard was definitely one, and I was a little bummed he didn't make it through because I had some fun ideas of how we could plus that up. I really enjoyed Sweet Taboo because I live in California and I live in Los Angeles, and we made it feel very identifiably LA, which is where the girls are from. So that was really fun. I liked, oh gosh, there were so many. I loved Tennille's, especially as it progressed. I was really excited that she got to the final because by the third iteration of it, I saw it and I was like, oh, this is what it should have been at the beginning. It was like, it was exciting as a designer to get to really dig into that. Gosh, I liked Kelsey Lamb's look in the first episode. I thought it was really beautiful, and yeah, there were a lot of ones too that I really like. I loved Michael Bolton's look. I didn't really have a lot to do on that one because there was not really any scenery. It was all of the video content, but I just thought that the video content was so perfect for his song. And then I have a very sweet spot for Riker Lynch's look because that had probably one of my favorite textures that I've ever put on a set. It was this holographic film that we found, and I sort of had to convince. I didn't have to convince them too hard. Once I showed it to Jerry and Paul, they were like, "This is perfect." But it was a little bit of a. It was like, trust me, this is gonna look great, and it looked so good. We got to see it so much.
Well, these sort of techie, geeky, fun facts and figures about this whole thing that you've worked on that you might be happy to share.
Oh gosh, I mean, I would say in terms of techie, geeky stuff. I mean, I would have to look at the count of LED tiles that we had, but we were obviously very heavy, very. Large amount of LED. Our LED floor had I think it had over 500 tiles, and the floor was quite large. We were about 60 feet deep, and it went from 12 feet upstage to about 40 feet downstage. It was that shape. So that was pretty cool. One of the things that was really exciting about that, because on most shows, where there's just a black floor, we'll just spike. We'll use tape to spike where all the sets land, and there's sort of a little confetti of colored spike marks all over the stage. But with the video floor, you don't really want that because it just looks like dead. It looks like black dead pixels. And so we came up with a workflow where we had our band plots, which we would do anyway for the crew to see where everything goes. We put those in the video floor. So in between the acts, there would be this black and white grid that came up, and it just had big chunks of like, this set goes here, and this set goes here. And that was always really fun to see, because it was such a cool thing. But that kind of became my assistant art director's like one job, was just to sort of manage that, because we had to put the scenic stuff, we had to put lighting, we had to put effects, any audio, like all of that had to kind of funnel through the assistant art director to put into the plot and then go to the video team.
Awesome. Yeah, that's something I've seen quite a lot in Eurovision in recent years as well, where the video floor becomes a sort of changeable map. And it's like, okay, so the drums go here and the vocalist might go there. So yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
For you, what is the secret, I should say, to an award-winning performance, or a performance that will win a competition? What things do you think make it?
I think that, I don't know. I would say that with one of the things that all of the finalists had in common was just that they owned the stage when they were on it. They were all very confident, and they felt comfortable on the stage. And it was, and I think you could see that grow throughout the competition, especially with like someone like Chloe, who I don't think had a lot of experience performing on this kind of scale. Her first rehearsals and performances, I think she was quite nervous. And then what was kind of magical was the very first performance. In rehearsals, I loved the song, and I thought she was kind of wonderful. But it was watching her rehearse, I was like, oh, okay, like she's good. And then she just kind of came alive when the audience was in the room, and you saw her like really get it. And then once that happened, she had that energy in rehearsals too. I think she owned that, she owned that space that she was in. And I think the trust in the team is important too. I think that there were, the artists that were in the final really trusted us to guide them in the right direction. And that was nice. It was, it was nice for them to acknowledge that we all had their best interest at heart, and we were trying to make the best space for them to occupy.
Awesome. Brilliant. And one last thing, I know you're wearing an All Access hoodie.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So I know some, in terms of previous shows I've done, I know they've done huge sets. So they've done like the Super Bowl and other big massive things as well. I'm assuming that you've obviously worked with them as well in big projects such as the Super Bowl, that kind of thing.
Yes, I've worked with All Access a lot. They did provide our rental decking for the show. They're a company that I've worked with them on the Grammys, the Oscars, Billboard Music Awards, all sorts of shows. And we had, so our team, our vendors on this, we had All Access provided the staging. Sweetwater was our LED vendor. PRG, I think, provided all of the lights for that. And there was another company, Fuse, that provided some lights as well. And then our amazing, ASC construction team did everything else.
Awesome. Yeah. And finally, do you think he'll be back for season 2?
I really hope so. I think that, we don't know at the moment, and I'm trying to put it out there. I'm like rare and ready to go. I think that, I think that we put out an amazing product. I think we did an amazing show that really pushed the level of production value on, a weekly singing competition show. And that was part of the, the edict from the beginning was, our producers wanted this to feel like the Grammys. They wanted it to feel like billboards. They didn't want it to feel like, a talent show. And they, it was obviously, Eurovision model. There are no judges. There's no feedback. It was, we wanted to celebrate the artists and really, we wanted to showcase them in their best light. And I think we absolutely smashed that out of the park, and I usually am a pretty humble person, but like I also can admit when, I know I've done a good job, and I know that the team that I'm working with has done a good job. So I hope so. I think that honestly, I think Alexa winning is a great thing for the show. Because I think she's going to be really successful. I think so many of our finalists are going to be successful. I mean, Alan Stone is already such a well-regarded person in the music business, and he's really like a musician's musician. But I think America really got to fall in love with him. Obviously, Michael Bolton, is fantastic. Riker is great. I think, people really connected with him, obviously. And Chloe, I think that these people are gonna move forward in their careers, and hopefully that helps us, because we can sort of say, we helped them launch into a new, level of their careers, and and everyone that worked on the show loved it. Everyone really had the best interests of the show, of the artists at hand, and it was so interesting to, I said earlier, it was the hardest show that I've ever done in my life, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. And that was sort of the feeling of everyone, of all of the producers that I talked to. Everyone said, God, it was just a beast of a show. It was so hard, but, they would do it again. I really hope I get to work with this group of people again. So, hopefully.
Hopefully so. Awesome. And I do it again. Fantastic.
Yes.
What a way to end on, man. Thank you so much for this.
Of course. Thank you so much for reaching out. It's nice to know that people enjoy it's like you work really hard and you kind of,
of course,
hope that people like it.
Absolutely.
You're listening to Fernand's Live Show Extra, going behind the scenes of live TV.
An insightful chat into an incredibly creative mind, that was John Zuiker. 56 performances over several weeks is an immense task, but it resulted in some incredible performances. If this has whetted your appetite to find out more about how the production was made, check out my ultimate making of guide to the American Song Contest. If you liked what you listened to, go on, give us a like, do consider subscribing and following wherever you're listening to, and follow me on all the socials. That's Fernand's Live Show. Until next time, people, remember, always hit record and stay live. Peace.